Hello, we are Team Apple and we will be demonstrating leverage and coverage ratios. Leverage and coverage ratios focus on an organization's ability to meet long-term obligations. Leverage ratios in particular help to determine the extent to which an organization uses debt to support the organization's activities and acquisition of assets. We will be demonstrating how to understand and calculate these ratios using graham crackers. The first ratio is a leverage ratio that measures total debt to total assets. Here is the equation. This ratio shows what portion of total assets were paid for with debt. Ideally, this ratio should be 0.5 or less, below the median, and with a downward trend. So now in this example, I have 1 graham cracker in total debt, but 3 graham crackers in total assets. That means the debt to assets ratio is 0.33, which is in the ideal range. The second ratio is another leverage ratio that measures total debt to total net assets. Here's the equation. This ratio shows how much debt the organization has in relation to their equity and net assets. Ideally, this ratio should be 1.0 or less, below the median, and with a downward trend. So in this example, I have 1 graham cracker in total debt again, but only 2 graham crackers in total net assets. That means the debt to equity ratio is 0.5, which is in the ideal range. Keep in mind that debt is not necessarily a bad thing. Nonprofit organizations, for example, may have a higher debt to equity ratio one year because they have to take on additional debt to fund a new program or service or make a capital investment. So coverage ratios are next, and they focus on the capacity to make payments on debt as they come due. The first coverage ratio measures times interest earned. Here's the equation. This ratio shows if the organization has enough money to pay their interest expenses. Ideally, this ratio should be at least 1.0, above the median, and with an upward trend. So for this example, I have 1 graham cracker representing the increase in unrestricted net assets, and another graham cracker representing the interest expense. Now, keep in mind that's on the top and the bottom of the equation. That means the times interest earned ratio is 2.0, which is above the ideal range. There is double the money necessary to pay the interest expenses. Now for the second coverage ratio, it measures cash flow coverage, and here is the equation. This ratio shows if the organization has enough cash flow to pay for debt services and leases. The ideal range for this ratio is industry specific, but it should be above the median and with an upward trend. Keep in mind this ratio only provides a retrospective view, and future cash flow payments and expenses should be investigated as well. So for this example, I'm going to have 3 graham crackers representing the cash flow from operations, interest, and rent, and 1 graham cracker representing the interest, rent, and debt payments. This means that the cash flow coverage ratio is 3.0, which depending on the industry could be good or bad. For NPOs, nonprofit organizations, this could be a financially healthy ratio. So we want to thank you for watching, and we hope you have a better understanding of leverage and coverage ratios and how they can be used to assess the financial health of an organization.